Alright, so I got my custom risers done, which are really just a small little bolt and a couple of nuts. So I got the bolt stuck to the motherboard there, and I got adjustable standoffs, so basically those will sit inside the pre-drilled holes that I've already got from the last time, except I re-drilled that one because I had that one super glued to a piece of plastic, which didn't work. So those will pop through, and then on the bottom I'll screw the nut down, and then I can make it whatever level I want, and then just adjust the top one to cinch down essentially to this base plate, and that'll mimic a regular computer case would have a screw hole for these in proper spacers, but so I'm just trying to rig that. I think I'm done on the underside of the motherboard. So this one had a little bit chintzier heatsink plate for the back, and then it actually came with a new one that came with the cooler that I have, the heatsink and fan. So I stuck that on the back, and I can show you this before I hook it all up here. So here's the new heatsink that'll be going on. I don't want to dink with it too much because I got thermal paste that's already stuck on the bottom of this thing, but just a huge chunk of copper. So pretty cool, super low profile. It's like 1.25 inches or something, some ridiculously low amount. So that'll sit plenty of room above it to get a little bit of airflow, and the airflow is actually out of the side of this thing, not really on the top. So that'll help. I think, unfortunately, I'll have to actually see which way this sits and which way I want it. I don't know if it's reversible. That might be reversible. So maybe I'll point it in whichever direction I kind of want it to go outside of the case. And I don't know where it's going to sit. It's going to be like right here. So I don't think it really matters. If I blow it to the right, it's going to be hitting the power supply. If I blow it to the left, it's going to hit the wall. And I do have some holes in there, and really I've got fans that are going to sit right above this midriff line. That's actually because the top of the case has a pre-vent hole, so I've got a bunch of little 40 mil fans. I think I'm going to try and put 3 of them up there and wire them up to this guy when it's all done. So yeah, I'll have to brain on that, which way I want it to go. I want the heat to blow out, so I might blow it right into the wall here, because there will be a little bit of exhaust through these couple of holes in the side, a little bit on the bottom, and another hole there that I dremeled off from the other accessory ports that used to be in this thing. I don't think blowing it into the power supply is gonna really help anything, so I'll do that, and we'll see how it goes, and I will post once I got a little more put together. Can never have too much thermal paste, so I put a bunch on the processor, plus what we got on the heatsink. Hopefully 2 thermal pastes don't make it wrong, so we're gonna give it a shot. Alright, so we're a little further here. I've got some of the components just dry fitted in here. Got the processor in and the heatsink in, and I got it screwed down so the motherboard is fixed. I've got the RAM is in there. Let me see it kind of underneath all the cabling. I've got some cabling just kind of set in here. I've got some of the headers plugged in. I've got the power and LED switch and power LED and switch hooked up to the headers. I've got the speaker header hooked up. I've got my CPU fan hooked up. I have my RGB lights hooked up, and I'll flip her over when she's all locked down here and show you what I did with the LED lights. But because nothing can be easy, so here's the processing chip that I got that'll convert the old NES controller port into a USB header. So all well and good, and then because nothing can be easy, right where I've got the controller ports coming in, they are so deep. That's right where my main motherboard power hooks up. So they're too deep, and it's pushing against it, and I can't get these things to sit flush. I'm probably, I don't know, less than 1/4 inch, maybe 1/4 inch. So what I'm going to do, get that later. What I'm going to do is, because these things are so goddamn deep, those pin headers have a big hunk of plastic, and I don't think this thing's going to focus, but there's a big plastic sticking out a good 1/2 inch, and the metal pin headers are only sticking out a half of that. So I think what I can do is unhook all of these little wires, just pull them out, Dremel the whole thing down, as low as I can get it. I don't want to screw with the pins if I don't have to. Then I'll hook all the pins back up, and then maybe that will shave enough off I don't want to have to modify this if I don't have to, because I like that it's got the front little bezel thing where it pushes against, and then I've got another plastic plate that sits over it so that these things will stay put. I don't want to have to modify them if I don't have to, but you know, if I have to, I have to. I just spent a long time doing all the wiring, so it's all original up to the controller port, you know, and so I can unhook these things at will. You know, obviously I got one unhooked right now, and then I've got the other one hooked up, so I don't know, I'm going to finagle some more, and we'll see what I can figure out. If I can get them in there, I'll get that little plastic bezel just sitting over the top, or pressed in. I don't even remember how that thing clipped in. Maybe it was with a screw, I can't remember. And then I'm going to just kind of rough in a little bit of this cable management and see what I need. I've got tons of extra stuff. The old power supply, which I originally did, I ended up having to snip wires and, you know, cap them all off, just to save from all these wires. You know, these things are huge and they take up a lot of room that I really don't have in this build. But maybe with the hard drives not being in there anymore and now just using the MSATA drives, might buy me enough space, and maybe I don't have to futz with that, but we'll see, because when this thing all sits in there, she's going to have to be as snug as I can, and you know, that top's got to come on, so there's not a whole lot of room for all these wires to go, and the less wires the better, but in a little side space over there. And then I got to figure out how to get this power supply mounted, like mounted. I epoxied the last one down to the little metal plate underneath it. I don't know if I really want to do that. It would be better if it was bolted down like the whole, you know, the rest of this kit, but you know, I could take the power supply screws out and then drill, you know, just tap 2 through it, coming out on the bottom, going down, and then bolt those down. But then I just don't know if I can really get this case back shut, because there's 2 screws on either side, and obviously if I put a bolt into one, I'm not going to have anything to, you know, tighten the thread, and I don't know, I'll have to finagle it. We'll see. But I will post when I've got some updates. Surprisingly, that totally worked and only took about 5 minutes. So I zinged off the back. If I pop it back out here, you can kind of see it. It's a lot, probably about half as deep. And I went ahead and I zinged some of the pegs off, some of the actual pins, and then hooked them back up. And then that bought me enough room to fit them in and come just shy of the main motherboard power connector. So rinse, repeat, copy, pasta. I'm going to do the other one, and then, well, then I don't know. And then I may have to figure out what to do with the power supply and get that in, or maybe I'll call her a day, take this inside, and see if it'll start up. That'll be a pretty big test, and I can see if the lights work, and a whole bunch of software work I gotta do on this thing, because it's a brand new hard drive, so I gotta install Windows, do updates, patches, install a few programs. I've got an emulation program I want to get installed for sure. Probably do some freebies like you know, OpenOffice or something. I don't know. We'll figure it out. Alright, so smoke test number 1 was a success. Literally a smoke test. I plugged this thing in. I have not powered it on, but the lights for the line ends on the motherboard apparently are on even when the PC's not on. So nothing is fried, nothing is hurting, burning. So I'm going to try this thing. I haven't hit the power button yet. I don't know what it's going to do, honestly. My God, it's turning on. Did we get anything? Assuming I have the right HDMI in. I guess I didn't check that. Ooh. Ta! We have boot. New CPU installed. F1 to set up. Yes! Maybe my keyboard works. Yeah, I might have to grab a USB one. Thought I hit my own. Guess I didn't even check. Is this thing on? I don't know if there's power in this thing. See if you can tell if she works. No. Yeah, probably not. Probably just for kicks. What does she detect? 32 gig of RAM. Solid state. 1 keyboard, 1 mouse. Yeah, it shows up. Okay. M2, there's my hard drive, new CPU. What is set up? Function F1, yeah. You know what? The keyboard was not working the last time I tested it. Let me see if I can find it. Alright, so I'm actually pretty stoked. I just wanted to do an update on the NES PC as she's coming along here. As you can kind of see, I don't remember where we left off last time, if I had even had any of this put together. I think I was still cleaning out the case and getting that done, but I've got things in, mounted, placed, everything but the power supply is mounted. Right now it's just kind of chilling in there. I'll eventually take that apart, and I got to do some, well, basically what's next is all of these cables got to go. I don't need any of the graphics card powers. I don't need any of the SATAs anymore. I took the old hard drive and got everything transferred over to the M2 solid state, so I don't need that. Don't need the other second SATA, and really the only one I might keep is the Molex, and that might seem like an odd choice, but I do have a CPU fan display slash fan controller that I'm working on getting built into the top of this thing. I'm running into some space issues and how to get this to maneuver quite right, but I want a display to go in there, and really I'm running into problems with the door still closing properly and enough of the display showing in this window because it's not sized correctly. Obviously I'm just jimmy rigging, but I've kind of gone a little too far, point of no return here, by drumming out some of this stuff. So it's not an original top. Worst case, if I really wanted to go original again, I do have my own NES that was not for my uncle, which I could certainly give to him. Just pop mine off, put this one on mine, and just swap them. So I'm not opposed to that. Since this one's getting a little chipped up, I did kind of chip a little piece. I don't know where it went. I'll find it. Maybe color matching and painting. I don't know if it's going to happen, but we'll see about that. That's what's left. The back I've got drummed out a little bit, one for the power and a little bit for the motherboard, the backing. So to show what I've got kind of built here, you know, excuse the mess, but I've got most of the wires tucked away, power in, processor in, RAM in, everything's in. Obviously I think I was showing you the switches last time. They're working. Obviously the power here, you can kind of see the underglow, so I did go for some RGB lights, so it'll look a little better in the dark, and I'll do a follow-up video with this too, but right now I've just got it cycling RGB lights, and I thought that was super sweet. So I also have the controller units done. So in a previous video, I believe I showed that I had soldered on USB lines that run to the internal USB header, and then out here I've got two sets of controllers. Those ports are in, case is screwed in, so it unplugs. Regular old NES controller I've got here, and then plugs back in. Super awesome. I'll show that in a sec, but that's all working. The CPU heatsink fan kind of runs out the side, and I've got it's really loud, so I've got it turned down on the motherboard itself to silent mode, which is basically it runs as slow as it can without boiling the processor, and it's not too bad for heat. Obviously right now it's a little bit better because I got the case off, but you know, I was running it a little bit earlier with the case on, and you know, I tucked all these wires and just tucked them in there, so there's hardly any airflow. And even with that, with the case on and doing graphics intensive stuff, it ran fine. You know, the fan spins up a bit, but I'm not too worried about it. I don't think he's gonna be doing anything nearly as graphics intense as I was running it through its motions. So I think we're good there. To kind of show you the back here, scoot these over. So pretty typical. I've got the motherboard. The back plate is cut out here of the NES case. I do have a little cutting or drilling here to do because there's a mesh steel back on the power supply itself. So I kind of want to let some of that air come out because right now the fan's just blowing it into the plastic, and that's probably contributing to some heat. So I might drill either a line pattern or a little drill hole pattern, kind of like the back is. Whatever's going to look best. I'm not 100% sure, but right now I've just got a new keyboard, so I'll give this to him. Another RGB keyboard to match the RGB bottoms. Pretty cool. Got him a new mouse, and this one's a Bluetooth / RF, but when I was running it as Bluetooth mouse, it was really laggy, so I've got it as RF and it's working perfect. So I'm just gonna roll with that and get the USB dongle there, so that's good. I don't think he's gonna use any of the Wi-Fi stuff, but I got the antennas for that. I think he's got just a regular RJ45 he's gonna plug it into, so Ethernet cable. So that's all good, and I guess to kind of show you this thing, since I just think this is the coolest thing ever, is getting this getting that controller USB thing to work. So if I just quick spin up Super Mario here, and I do have an app, and it kind of spins up and it says not configured. I still don't know why it says not configured, even though it is configured. Clearly it's configured. So and I got to figure out some audio stuff too. It starts up kind of quiet and then
randomly gets louder or whatever. But I thought this was just the coolest thing ever, getting the controller to work. So he's an NES Advantage controller guy, so having that working was one of those requirements that I wanted to get working for him. So other than that, pretty sweet. I'm super stoked. So programmed a couple things. So select start A will get you out of the game. So, and then this will control the application. I'm actually running Launchbox, which is just basically a front end that'll kind of categorize, get me data on the games, and then it just runs RetroArch in the background. So I'm working on that, building up the library stuff, getting all that going. So that's pretty cool. As far as specs go, this thing is doing a little bit better than I thought. So I'm super happy with that. You know, it was a Ryzen 5 processor, so it was like a quad-core 3.7, 3.9, I can't quite remember, and then a built-in GPU. So, you know, I was a little bit worried about that not being able to keep up. But running some benchmarks, just the Unigine app, which is pretty good for graphics testing or whatnot, is actually pretty sweet. So it's not perfect, but it's running, I think it averaged like 30 FPS. So if I just run it, quick hit benchmark and you can kind of watch. So it's, you know, starts off mid-20s or whatever, but it'll kick up to 30, a little over 30, which isn't perfect, but for not having a graphics card, because obviously there's no room in there for a dedicated GPU, you know, I'm pretty stoked. This is far more advanced and graphics intensive than he's ever going to run or use it for. So YouTube and Netflix is probably the gist of it, and maybe some NES Mario or Zelda or something. So as far as what he's going to need it for, I think this will work just fine. But if he ever wants to play any real games, it can certainly do it. So that's pretty cool. Like I mentioned, there's some design choices that I made in doing this that some people might not agree with, but I really didn't want a brick, power brick. I couldn't even find a good power brick to power it enough. But I've got a mini ITX PSU in this thing, and once I cut those wires, it'll fit just fine. It presses right on the case. It's case to case, top to bottom, so it's just enough you know, height in this thing to allow it. And then it's just a standard power cable, and I really just wanted a standard power cable. So we'll get that fixed down. But yeah, as you can see, about 30 FPS, so it's running just fine. So super stoked there. Things left to do is just to mount this down. So I'm going to undo the case, and that'll help getting at those wires. And what I think I'm going to do is just either pull the wires through. You know, each little bundle I don't need. I'll probably pull them through, snip them, and then I'll probably just do a little bit of heat shrink on the end just to cover up the exposed wire. I think that'll be fine. And then either I'll pigtail them out the front and just have them hang in there, or best case, I'll pull them through and then I'll just end them inside the box. And as long as they're not touching anything hot, I think that'll be fine. I don't want to solder off anything in the board inside of here. I just don't trust myself to solder that off properly. And then with the case off, what I think I'm going to do is this case is kind of split into two parts, kind of a fatty part where it screws in, and then one with the board on it. So obviously the board's going to be on this side because that case goes off that one. What I'm probably going to try and do is then drill a couple of bolts that'll go through the bottom, bolt them up, and then see if I can snap the case back together and see if that works. I don't necessarily need all four of these screws. There's one on each end and two on the bottom as well. So maybe I won't be able to get at the other bottom two, so I'm going to have to finagle it a little bit. And even if it's just the top two holding it on, that's perfectly fine. It'll stay shut. So we'll do that, and then I'll see if I can get my fan controller to work. We'll decide if it's worth it, if I can pull it off. Might swap the top since I kind of mangled this one up trying to Dremel out pieces to make it fit. If I can make it fit, then I don't care because it covers all this up. So if that works, I do have a fan in here. Might have to upgrade that because it doesn't kick up at all. There's just no speed to these little guys, so I might need something bigger. Yeah, so I'm just about done. I got most of the software installed, ready to go. So I think you know, inside of this, once I finish up some of the game catalogs, it'll be ready. I'll just turn it off and just finish the case up. And once the case is done, I think she's ready to go. So I'm going on vacation tomorrow, so I'm not going to get to this, but I wanted to get a video done, just a quick preview. And then I think in the next week or two, you know, after I'm back from vacation, might take another week. We'll see how much I actually get done today. And then we'll do a quick recap video at the end, just to show how it turns out, how she looks. And then it'll be done and ready off for my uncle. So, cool. Keep you posted.